I'm Colin Barnett. I'm a resident of Spittal, a village in Pembrokeshire, and I started the campaign for Stop the Stink with my partner Sue Lewis, based on the fact that all of a sudden we'd been here for a couple of years and this horrendous smell appeared and invaded our home. Didn't know what it was. Turns out it's a local landfill. The Stop the Stink campaign came about after we spent a couple of months smelling this foul smell, realised there was something wrong because it was so persistently invasive in our house. Spent all Christmas and New Year sitting amongst this toxic smell that you couldn't get escape from, couldn't open the windows. It was in the house, it was in the garden. And we realised shortly after that somebody told us it was a local landfill, which we didn't even know was actually only a mile away from our house, because we'd never smelt or experienced anything of it, couldn't see it from the road. And then when we started investigating, we thought this is a bit of a problem now, and set up a Facebook site in January just to have a look at it, because on our village Facebook site everybody was commenting on it, and everybody decided that it needs to get shifted off the local community one. Set up an independent Facebook site, and then all of a sudden ended up with 1,000 people on it, simply because everybody else was experiencing a similar smell elsewhere in their own communities. That really shocked us, how wide it had gone, and it went on from strength to strength there, because people were commenting on it, absolutely horrendously annoyed with this toxicity of the smell, and it started affecting people's eyes, their breathing, and if you've got underlying conditions such as asthma, it was affecting that. It became a problem obviously for a lot of people, and then before we knew it, we got 2,000 people on the site. Originally we knew nothing about landfill. We obviously recycle, or thought we recycled well, like everybody else does, but on finding out that the landfill was causing a problem, emitting gases and leachate from its site, we discovered quite a bit about what the waste industry and how that was impacting on everybody, not just us in this country, but nationally. There's a national problem with waste landfills. Unfortunately, we've had to learn a lot. We've had to delve in and do our own research, because we reached out to our public services asking them what that smell was, what was going on, why are we breathing in toxic fumes, this air is foul, what about our health? Couldn't get any response from anybody. We got referred consistently, whether we called the police, fire service, public health or the county council, to Natural Resource Wales, who are the regulators for the environmental permit that was on the landfill. Then we realised we got a really big problem with that, because nothing was happening. We contacted NRW about it. They said they'd look into it. It was only when I produced video evidence that people started coming out and having a look at what was going on. So since then we've had to do our own research, because we were asking for gas monitoring to take place and try and find out what the toxins were. Nothing was available apparently that could put our minds at rest within the community. So we did a lot of research ourselves, found out that hydrogen sulfide was the main component of the eggy smell gas we could smell, and that was the one that was really horrible to have in your homes. But behind that, we discovered then there's a lot of other hidden toxins in any landfill once it mixes with water and the chemicals mix together, and that can be carbon disulfide, it's cancer causing agents like toluene, benzene. Lots of other things can come out of landfills which you need to be concerned about. That set alarm bells off with us. Went back to our public services, got the same response, sent back to NRW. For months that was happening, and then we called a public meeting in February eventually, and got people out, got a panel of public speakers out from the local authority, public health, local councillors, and the owner of the company himself, where they answered questions from the public. None of that was satisfactory. We were promised that they would be responding and get rid of this smell. And we've had several deadlines offered us since, where they've put something in place, suggested it's going to stop, hasn't happened. It's like they don't know how to stop it. But we do know now that it does harm your health. They've not got any evidence to the contrary of that, because we've asked for specific evidence from them. And we're going to carry on with the campaign, because we're concerned about how it's affecting people. We've got school children just local to us, we've got nurseries, we've got it's even been reported from the local hospital in Haverfordwest, where nurses have commented on it on the Facebook site, being in the wards. It's gone far and wide. It's covered about 100 square miles at times, this stench has. People are driving on the A40, popping on the Facebook site and comment on it. Absolutely horrendous. People are just disgusted that this can happen in such a beautiful area of Wales, which is the Pembrokeshire county, right next to the Pembrokeshire County Country Park. Since we started the investigation into where the smell's coming from, we had protests where people have turned out. We've put a petition up that's got enough signatures to get read at the cabinet meetings in the local authority. So everything we've done or set up, we've had support from the local people, which has been really rewarding. But what is scary is still the comments on Facebook where people are worried about their health and their children's health. We've had reports of people that being sent to hospital, kids sending their kids to hospital with asthma outbreaks that they've never had before. Elderly people, they've been on inhalers on a regular basis, are suddenly having to increase the volume of their inhalers, etc. So very, very concerning with the response. And as much support as we have had, we haven't been as effective yet to stop the smell, because we haven't had the support from the local authorities and public services. Up until recently, nobody was doing anything. It was only last month that the local authority of Pembrokeshire County Council put in a court order, an injunction, an abatement notice to the company to stop the smell, and that's going to go to court now. Our regulators have done nothing. We've put incident reports in via the online website for a Natural Resource Wales, or we telephone calls in when there's smells in our homes. And that's happened frequently. In January, I put a Freedom of Information request in. 822 calls went in January, which for a rural area is an awful lot of calls going in about a particular problem. And we've had assurances from NIW that they put compliance notices on the company, and those are supposed to enforce the company to act to fix a problem. They've had one compliance notice after another compliance notice on. They've got several compliance notices on. They're supposed to have met each compliance notice, the company, but we've still got the smell. We've had engineering works done on it. Section 36 from the NIW was put on it, which means they've got to carry out and complete engineering works to extract the gas properly, etc. All of that's been put onto this company, and in a way I suppose the company's tried to move towards that, but nothing's resolved the smell, simply because of the stuff that they were dumping in there before it became highly visible to the public and everybody else. It's very difficult to track what goes into a waste landfill site, simply because they come in huge trucks. They carry 20-25 tons of trucks, come from all over the country. Some of the waste has come from England, as well as Cardiff, as well as other areas of the country. And that gets dumped onto the landfill itself, but it can arrive in different forms. It can arrive as solids, like it could be plastic bales or things like that, or refuse bags. It can arrive in dust form, because it's been shredded in another station. In Cardiff, for example, a lot of recycling stuff can go to Cardiff, get shredded instead of getting recycled, and end up being pulled back into the landfill, simply because of the savings to the waste companies. As to the contents of it, we know for certain that plasterboard's gone in there because of the high content of the gas that we can smell is hydrogen sulfide, and that's generated from plasterboard mixed with water. We know that from the company's own investigation into the toxins, they produced a graph that was publicly available, and that showed high levels of hydrogen sulfide off the scale, carbon disulfide, high levels of that. It showed toluene, benzene, and a couple of other gases of extreme concern to us. And just before Christmas, the NIW did a desktop exercise on the company and found out from their self-reporting, that they'd overtipped by 44,000 tonnes of non-conforming waste, which by that means it's waste that they shouldn't have accepted on site. And that would include residue from power stations and recycling, medical waste, building materials they shouldn't have had, and that was reported and documented in the regulators' own paperwork. Not a lot's happened about it, but the company's been told to comply and go back on to only accepting waste that they should be accepting. But from our own research, from the drone footage that I've shot, there's such a mix and randomness to the waste coming in. it's very, very difficult for anybody to define a specific product that's going in there that shouldn't be going in there. But for certain, with the amount of gases that have been emitted, it's of serious concern. We've seen other vehicles, trucks that have had the back opened up accidentally, where car tyres and not car tyres, sorry, plastic sheets have come out and other rubbish has come out that certainly looks like it's industrial waste. But again, I come back to the powder stuff and the medical stuff that's going in there. That shouldn't be in there. I mean, we've documented that by flying over with a drone and seeing the yellow bags in the station after it's been dumped. We've seen the powder coming off the back of a lorry, and it's not just inert powder, it's steaming, it's on fire almost when it's coming off some of these lorries, and they're dragging that onto the landfill and dumping it onto the landfill. The Welsh Government's been asleep with the whole process of what's been happening with these landfills. Have been for years, from what I understand. And often, if you write to the minister, First Minister, or the Climate Minister, or the Health Minister of the Cabinet of the Welsh Government, the Senedd, they'll defer it back to the regional manager to respond in the southwest for the NRW. So they even defer back to the staff on the front line themselves. So they've got no responsibility or accountability as far as they can see. But they have, because we're their citizens. They set up the landfill tax bill, which has created a tourism of waste where it goes all over the place. Cheapest way possible is going to get dumped. So they have a lot of accountability with that. They also benefit from the landfill tax, and to shine it onto a regional manager to respond or be reactive to this alone without the support from the top is not good enough, because he's not going to be effective against a company as big as the Dawson Group Limited. That needs to come from the government. It needs government enforcement. Well, the landfill tax bill was discussed in the Senedd for quite a period of time, and they generated questions and challenges around that landfill tax bill. And one of the issues that somebody raised was the fact that it could create a situation where we've got waste tourism, rather than waste being localised and managed locally. It could be travelling all over the country to the nearest recycling centre or another area of process that waste needs to happen. And that's exactly what's happened. Despite being challenged at the time, they passed the bill, and now we've got a waste tourism situation where operators will move the waste to the cheapest area they can get rid of it, obviously. The landfill tax bill that also creates a revenue source for the Welsh Government, because they tax per tonne of landfill. So the amount varies from £3 a tonne for recycled waste to be dumped or processed, to £100 for inert waste or non-recyclable waste to go to landfill. So there's quite a tax savings if the individuals choose to not go through the books properly. The landfill tax itself is self-reported from waste companies. That goes from the company to NRW. So in effect, the NRW are the tax collectors, because they report to the Senedd how many tonnes of waste have gone into one landfill or another. Shame they don't check that, but they do report on whatever the company tells them, and then the Senedd can expect that much money from the tax, from the tonnage of the landfill from the company. That money itself goes to the Senedd, and from there it goes to wherever it goes to pay for whatever. Some of it will come down to frontline services, I accept that. So any shortage in tax is depriving the frontline services of extra income. So that's an issue in itself almost. The tax money itself as well is a bit of a joke, because when they were discussing the landform tax bill, they also discussed the impact that landfills have on the environment and the immediate community. It's documented in their own documents about the bill that it can have a negative effect, and everybody accepted at the Senedd, yes, landfills have a negative effect on their own community. So they decided to put aside a percentage, 3% of the landfill tax money that came in to go to community projects to make up for the damage they were doing to their own communities. So that money has been around for a while, and it has helped individual communities with environmental projects to improve their community. which would, to be honest, if you got rid of the landfill, that would improve the community. But it only helps a few people because it's community projects it helps, whereas everybody else, all residents that live in the surrounding area, have the negative effect of the landfill. It's a bit convoluted, but then that money that they have for a long time given to the communities for environmental projects to improve the area has now been cut to from about 3 million to about 500,000 last year. So even that's been reduced. Tourism itself is a bit of a shocker because we've put a little bit of pressure on about the tourism period because that's where local businesses make their money. They've got such a short tourist window and they've got to get the income in. And we've had businesses commenting on the fact that they've lost customers because they've turned out to their holiday chalets and left the business, left their holiday because of the stench. And you wouldn't want to be sitting in an outside sauna in a kind of a yurt area where sniffing in that horrendous smell, would you? So it has to be of concern to business, and there's been no response about the tourism industry at all, which is really weird. But the property itself, that we're obviously living in a nice area, and there's a certain value to the properties around the area. If you live within a mile of a landfill, apparently, your property value goes down by 12%. Further out from that, it's about 7%, and then a bit further, it drops down to about 5%. But nobody's going to come out a winner if you live near a landfill and you're trying to move. Plus, you've got to declare it now, haven't you? If there's any issues with your home and you want to move, you've got to declare it, and that puts buyers off instantly as soon as there's a landfill next to it. But if you have got an underlying health condition, it's not a place to be where you don't know. For one, you don't know for sure yet what the toxins are in that landfill site because we've not been told clearly exactly the extent of the poisons that are in there. But you're not going to escape it if you've got an underlying health condition. The Welsh Government know that these landfills damage the local community. They have a negative effect on health and well-being, and they should be doing better.